called My Pal. Let's see. I might play one more, and then we'll start the question and answer session. I can think of something. How many people in here has one of these guitars? You know, I don't get a dime off these things. I know y'all think I get a royalty, but
You ought to.
I don't get anything off it, and I had to pay for mine. You bet. Of course, I got it cheaper than y'all did, but it really turned out well. I was real happy with it. They're going to make one more change to it at my request, and they're going to. I asked Mike Lewis back last year at the NAMM show to get Grover to make those big fat Gumby, I call them Gumby keys, that I like those big fat knobs, and that's what was on Chet's guitar. I've got a set up, the originals on mine, I bought on eBay. But I sent them one, and a real nice one, and they're making molds, and in about 3 months they're going to come out, back out with them, and they're going to be on the National Classic, and so then it'll be really like Chet's thing, because he loved those things. He didn't like these stair tips because they're always awkward. They're always at a wrong angle when you go to tune. You have to do your hand this way or whatever. So anyway, other than that, that'll be the only change. And I'm trying to get them to bend these vibrola handles correctly. For some reason, it's I can't get them to do it, but I'm staying after them, and maybe we'll get that done, and then it'll be about perfect then. A lot of guys ask me if his bridge is pinned, the bridge is pinned on his guitars, and the answer is yes. What they've got, which is really clever, they've got 2 Allen screws, one on each side that's screwed down into the top, and they stick up about a 32nd of an inch. And then the bottom of this bridge is routed, and that sets down on those pins. It keeps it from shifting, you know. And you can take it off, but the old guitars, they just went every which way and scratched the top and all that, you know. So I thought that was a good idea that they did there. And they're really plentiful now. It's pretty easy to get one now. The reason they were so hard at first because that company makes all the great models, and they have about 60 models. And they make them for other companies too, so you have to get in line, you know. So it's, but anyway, they've sort of got together now. Let's see. I got something else to play.
About Georgia County.
Played that a long time. See, I ain't played that. I don't think I want to play that.
How about no?
Set this down, I don't want to fall over. All right, anybody got any questions? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Question number one.
Pickup question.
You need to count on it.
On the 59 that Chet had, did he have TV Jones pickups?
No, that was before he was born. No, what happened was, Gretsch pickups are 4,000 ohms. They're a low output pickup compared to a Gibson pickup. When you record, you've got to have a lot of output on your guitar to get enough signal level to keep from having a lot of noise and all that stuff when you record. I don't know this for certain, but I think what Chet did, he rewound, had Shot Jackson to rewind the back pickup to 8,000 ohms, which was double. Therefore, he got more output out of his guitar. And the front pickup is the original Supertron that Ray Butts made. And I think that's the reason he had that done. But that's the same thing. We did the same thing on that TV Jones. Anyway, that's one reason it sounds so good. That's right.
When Chet first went with Gibson, they didn't have a very good sounding guitar, did they? When first, did you have to do some modifications to make it sound right?
No.
I was told that by somebody.
No, that's not true. What happened was, Gretsch, quality of Gretsch kept going down. They kept selling the company and changing people running it and all this. And when Baldwin took over, it just, the quality really went to hell on it. And they moved the factory down in Arkansas. And none of the people down there that ever built guitars. And none of the people that was in Brooklyn moved down there too, you know. So it just kept getting worse and worse, and people come up to Chet on the road and said, well, my Fred's is off on my country gentleman, this and that. And this went on for years, and finally he told me, he said, boss, he said, I hate to do it, so I went to have, make a change, and he told the Gretsch people, you know, I said, you know, I'm just going to have to do something here. I can't go on like this. It's embarrassing. So Chet really admired Fred Gretsch Sr., and so he stayed with Gretsch until he passed away, because he'd been nice to him all those years, and back in the 50s when he first went, you know. And so anyways, so Chet said, well, you know, I can go back to that early on in my career. I played Gibson, you know, when he first started. He said, I can go back to them. And he had come up with the idea for this that CE Classic. He really wanted, he'd gotten Mr. Haskell Hale to build a prototype, and he was playing it on the road. And he just about quit playing a regular classic guitar because nobody could hear you. We played big auditoriums, and you know, he played with a symphony, and they'd out loud you and all that. So he really wanted to get into that guitar, and so Gretsch wasn't interested. So Gibson was, and Tim Shaw was working in the R&D department, and so he just had a meeting with them. They said, yeah, we'd be glad, you know, we're excited about it, we'll do it. So Chet said, well, I want a hex pickup, and then the hex pickup is the one that's, each string has got an output. It's got little volume controls on it, and you can balance the pickup. Any guitar's got a Pazio pickup in it. You can't balance it worth much because you can't balance it. I hate the things, and Chet did too. And Gibson's trying to go back to that now, but they're trying to do something about that. This state is. Anyway, we just went up, when they built that first country gym, and Chet and I went to Kalamazoo, and just before they moved here. and had a meeting with him, Jim Hutchins, he was one that built it, and one other guy. And they just sat down and Chet told him about what he wanted. He didn't want any binding down the neck. He didn't like that. He wanted the frets to come over the edge of the neck. And one less fret on the finger more so the front pickup would be further forward where the thumb pick wouldn't hit the pickup, you know. Things like that, and so they just built one. And sent it down to him, and he didn't make any modification to it. He played it for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, and they made a second one that had low impedance pickups in it, and he didn't care for that one. And he played that first one for about 5 or 6 years, and then he started getting, it was real heavy, as everybody knows, this thing weighed a ton. And as Chet got older, at one period, he got to, started having neck trouble, and he said, man, this guitar, I said, go ahead, I just can't hardly hold it. And so he asked Jim Hutchins to make him a lighter one. And at that time, he had told me to go out to, he had me going out to Gibson I'd go out there about once a week, and he wanted me to check on the quality and things like that. And so I suggested he move the switch up at the top, because Chet was always fumbling around trying to find that switch down there. And one of those controls was in the way for you to valve a roller, so I suggested that they reconfigure that. We solved all that. And then Chet told him to change the position markers. He didn't like those red things. And change the F holes. They had big F holes. He didn't like those. So he wanted them about the size of the Angelico. And so they put a piece of balsa wood, compressed balsa wood down the center, took that big block of maple out. Other than that, well, they didn't have any trouble with the sound. They were just Gibson pickups. What sound came out of it was Chet's hands and Chet's. That was a long answer, but a short. Bore you to death here. Anything else?
How did Chet balance his time between his own music and working at RCA for other people?
Well, he retired from, after he got sick. The first time he got cancer was about the time that I started with him, about 1975. And he retired from producing people because he couldn't, it was just too much. So I can't answer your question because when he retired from producing, he just concentrated on his stuff.
Was he pretty easy to work with as far as the rehearsing and stuff like that? He and I were a lot alike, so we didn't have any conflicts, and I admired him so much, and it was just great to work for him. You know, I don't think we ever had a cross word in 25 years. So it was like being married. You sort of knew what the other one wanted, you know. So, but he was always trying to come up with new ideas, and I was too. I'm always working on something. So we had a lot of fun, you know. A big contrast between him and Reed.
Well, yeah, Jerry is a completely different personality, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of fun working with Jerry now. It was like going to college. He was an amazing guy, but he's a completely different person than Chet. But it was great working with him. If I hadn't worked with Jerry, I'd never been good enough to work with Chet because I learned so much from Jerry. He's one of the greatest that ever lived.
You know, on that bottom line video that just came out, Chet mentions where there was a bass string used, bass strings on the guitar. Can you talk about that a little bit, and how that came about?
Yeah, that's Chet's idea. Y'all know that, familiar with Chet's regular 3 little words and one other tune he used. Yeah, there's 3 or 4 tunes he used a guitar with like it. He had some kind of gritch and he had those on. He didn't have, he'd already got rid of that guitar, giving it somebody or something when I started with him. But anyway, he had a guitar that he had bass strings on. It didn't work out well, and I started fooling around with it. And I finally discovered that you put short scale strings on it, it was a lot better. So I fixed up a Tennessean that way, and then being I played a country gentleman, well, I got a country gentleman from Gibson, I had Chet too, and then I put the bass strings on it. And that, it's pretty simple. Excuse me, Diodario makes some short scale bass strings, and you just, I think you use a third, the bass string like it's 4 strings, the A string I think is a 90, maybe the other one is a 100 millimeter. And you just, you have to do a little modification to your guitar, you know. Cut your notches in your bridge and your nut to accommodate them, you know. But, and it's a little hard, you have to practice because that string is so big, you know. But it's great when you get it down. Chet and I played many concerts, just he and I. Everybody liked it, I reckon. Yeah, well.
Oh, when Chet got his D'Angelico back and it was acoustic again, and for years he kept it that way, and then you and he decided, and he recorded, I believe, with that guitar on one of the last albums that he did. How do you feel? Did you help him put that stuff back together?
Well, what happened was everybody always told him that was his greatest sounding guitar. Which if you took a vote, Chet Atkins fans, they'd say D'Angelico was his best guitar because his greatest records was recorded at Bell St. Mary's and Country Gentleman. So everybody kept telling him that. It's ain't easy.
I'm sorry.
So anyway, one day, give me that water there. One day he called me and he said, I want you to put my D'Angelico back away for us. So I got all the parts together and did it. And I went by the pictures. I got all the books out and did measurements, and I think I got it back just the way it was. And of course, you can't go back. So he used it on that Bigfoot. And back then, he was using a little deluxe Fender amp. That's what he used back then. And he had one, but I think when he recorded that, he probably used his Yandell. One day I was out after he got sick. I went out there and I wanted to try it, so I got it. I asked if I could, and I went downstairs and got it, and I plugged it in that little old amp, and it really sounded great. It was just that combination back then, you know. Yeah, but you got to realize that back in those days, the recording machines and everything was different. All the equipment in the studio was different. So it's really hard now to duplicate things that they did in the 50s, you know. I doubt if Chet, if he'd have just switched over to the D'Angelico, I don't know whether he could ever gone back and got that same sound. He may have. He could have if he'd have wanted to. I don't know. He could do anything he wanted to. But anyway, that guitar's down at the Hall of Fame. Leona gave it to the Hall of Fame where everybody could enjoy it. She said she knew Chet wouldn't want anybody else playing it. I agreed with it. Anything else?
Oh, of all the albums you and Chet made together, which one brings back the most enjoyable, fun memories for you? Super Picker?
No. Probably Atlanta Burn. That was more
fun doing that, because we just sat in the studio and did it too. There wasn't any overdubbing on that. We just sat around and, in a group and did that. Did 2 sessions, I believe. Lisa Silver, violinist, and Johnny Gimble and me, and Chet, and I think John Loudermilk's son played on one that he wrote. And that was a lot of fun doing that, and I think that's one of Chet's best albums. It's just really good. I can.
Paul, do you ever remember what happened to your old original Fender?
You mean my Telecaster?
These people probably don't know you used to play a Fender.
Yeah, that's the first guitar I ever had as a kid. My mom and dad let me milk a cow we had. Let me sell the milk every 2 weeks, and I saved up money. And I got a Fender Telecaster. And I finally saw Billy Bird at the 4th of July in Union City, and he's playing a Bigsby and a Bigsby Barbarola. And I said, well, that's how they're doing it. I thought Chet was bending his neck on the guitar. I was the biggest gerb you ever seen. And I think it was $52 is what Bigsby charged for that Barbarola. But I ordered one of those things. Boy, I believe I had the only one in Kentucky. But anyway, next.
Would you talk a little bit about you and Chet and Lenny Breau recording and just your...
Well, I never did record with Chet and Lenny. I sort of discovered Lenny. I don't like to take credit for it because it was just a matter of time before it would have happened anyway. But I was working with Kitty Wells and Odell Martin. I was with Kitty, and we went up to Winnipeg. And Lenny was up there, and so every time we'd go up there, he'd come over to the hotel room and play for us. So he had a TV show up there, and he had an audio tape, 7.5-inch tape of that show. And he said, take us down to Nashville and see if you can get me a record deal. I'd like to record. He didn't say take it to Chet or anybody. Like man, take it down there for me, will you? So I brought it down, and for some reason, I didn't take it over to Chet. I took it to Jerry Kennedy, he was a producer over at Mercury. And he plays guitar too, but I took it over and left him. He said, well, I don't have any use for it, you know. I can't use him. So I go over and get it, and I thought, well, I'll take it by over Chet's. So I took it by over, left it at Chet's secretary. And one morning and that afternoon, Chet came on, holy mackerel, said, who is this? And I said, that's Hal on Pine and Betty Cody's son, which Chet knew them. He had recorded them back early. He said, where's he live? And I said, well, he's up in Winnipeg. He said, man, how's he doing those harmonics? And I said, well, I don't know, Chet. I said, he wants a record deal. Chet said, you got his number? And I said, yeah. So Chet called him, and in 2 weeks he had him down there recording. And that's how he got started.
Thank you.
One of the best things I ever did for the guitar players of this world. Lenny was one of the greatest. Next to Chet, he was the greatest. Well, he could play anything. But he had so many personal problems, it was just pathetic. Really bad.
Were you in with Garrison Keeler on Prairie Home Companion, and Chet seemed to have kind of a close relationship, and Chet seemed to enjoy that program?
He did. He and Garrison were the best of friends, and Chet listened to that show all the time, and it was so much fun to work that show. And we did about a 3-week tour. We went up to New Hampshire and wound up in Salt Lake City, California, and up there. It was great. And Garrison's a wonderful guy, and he's a genius. Amazing. So, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
What year did you join the Luban Brothers, and how long did you play for them?
I joined them spring of '55, and I stayed with them until I got drafted, which was December '58.
Did you record with them?
Yeah. Up to that point, Chet had did all of it. When I started with them, they had, when I stopped dreaming in Pitfall, was their current release, and from that point on, I did all their records, and I think it was about 5 albums, and I left, and Jimmy Capps went with them after I left. Well, it was great. I didn't make any money. Of course, nobody did back in those days. I think I do. They started me out, let's see, union scale back then was $18.25 a day. And if you traveled over 200 miles, I think you got an extra $6. And so after about 3 weeks of working with them, they said, well, we're going to put you on a salary of $50 a week. So, Rand, you can't live very high on $50 a week. So that's what I made with them, was $50 a week. And you played the Opry down there, they are so cheap, those SOBs. The way they had it set up was you played the programs, like a first program, I think it was $8. If it was on a show, say at 7 o'clock, from 7 to 7:30, you do 2 numbers. You made $8 for that show. Well, they put you on the second show, which the audience changed over at 10 o'clock or something. The second show was $5. So you're lucky if you was on Friday and Saturday, because you'd make $13 on Friday and $13 on Saturday.
Good.
And let me tell you, some of those stars like Roy Acuff and Lester and Earl, they'd keep the boys as checks. They made them turn their checks back into them. They'd pay them like $50 a week, and they'd get their money. Now, Roy Acuff worth millions of dollars. Like Oswald, those guys, they didn't make. He got their money just making off the opera. They had to turn his checks back in. I know that's hard to believe, friends. You know, now I've talked about Chet. Chet's paid me well, and he was fair money. But I'm telling you, a lot of these stars down here are the cheapest SOBs you've ever seen. I heard Farron Young say right out of his own mouth, he said, I'd rather pay it to the government than pay it to my boys. That's their opinion, you know.
That's back when.
That's what they think about you, you know.
Was Rip working with him about that time?
No, I expect it.
How good a golfer was Chet?
He was pretty good in the 80s. But as he got older, he didn't quit playing.
Tell us about Chet and the recording session with Hanks.
Oh. Chet, this is in, sometimes in the 80s. Hank asked Chet if he'd produce a session on him again. Chet very seldom produced any sessions, but he made a session with Hank because he produced him in the past. So he set up a session in RCA, the big Studio A, and I forget who all was on the session, but Bobby Thompson, who you all know played banjo and a great musician. He's a great rhythm player, so he and I were playing rhythm together, and we were sitting close to each other like this. And Hank was about further at that stand at the microphone, and I don't know who all we had bass and drums, and so we did 2 or 3 tunes, and generally you do 4 tunes on a session. And so Chet says, well, Hank, you know, that might be good to put banjo on this tune. And Hank says, I don't like banjo players or people who play them. Because I don't like banjos or people who play them. Bobby Thompson, I mean, you could hear him. I mean, he's right in line. He said, well, you sorry son of a bitch. They had all that reverb, and you could hear that. Of course, Hank didn't act like he knew anything. So anyway, about making the next tune or something, most of these stars, they don't know where one is, like the Beaker one. And you'll be surprised how many of them can't, after the intro, can't tell where to come in. Well, and that was the case on one of these tunes, and Hank had a lot of pride, you know, he was an elitist and always walked around with his nose in the air and all that. And so he kept coming in wrong after the intro, and after about the third time, Chet says, hey, Hank, you know, it's like you come in after something like that. Well, Hank wised off at Chet, said something smart back to him. And I was sitting there looking at the control room, and Chet just gathered up his papers and walked out. He didn't come back, he went home. And we had about 2 more tunes to do, and so that we just did them with no producer. And so I was over Chet's office maybe a day or 2 later, and Chet said, I wrote him a letter and told him I'd never produce him again. And so in about a week, well, Hank wrote him a letter back to apologize. You know, the way he acted with Chet said, I'll never do it again. That's the way Chet was. Somebody did him dirt for him. He never had anything. He would never have anything else to do with him again. Anything else? I hope I'm not boring, y'all.
Oh, no.
That fellow back there.
Can you tell us anything or elaborate on some sort of bridge between Chet and Les Paul?
Elaborate on what?
They had, I read in one of the.
Had you seen the tension between
There was
Les
some
and
tension
Chet?
between them.
Well, it's sort of like a contest. First of all, you're dealing with Chet, who he's got an ego, but he don't really lord it over people. He don't have to. Chet was so good, you know, he could play with anybody, play anything he wanted to. That's, you know, you can look at his career and tell that. But Les is always in competition with everybody. You know, the great I am of the guitar, that's me. And he was always trying to cut Chet, wisecracking and all that, you know, during the sessions. And finally, Chet just had to give it back to him, you know. He sort of went give and take all the time. I remember one time they were going to do Somewhere Over Rainbow, and they were sitting around. The way we did, we just sat there and they'd start noodling around and work out their parts, and then when they get ready, well, we'd make a track. So Chet was working on his part, Les was working on his part, and Les said, well, I can't think of anything to play there, Chet. Chet said, how about the melody? Somewhere Over the Rainbow, that's the great melody there was. But the first album was really great. The second album is like all second albums. They're never as good because they use all the great material on the first album. And they had a better rhythm section on the first one. Chet insisted that I play rhythm on the second one. I didn't want to. I tried to talk him out of it. For some reason, he wanted that open chord stuff, and I hate that mess. That's good for country songs, but for instrumentals, it sucks. And I never could get Chet to. That arch top stuff is what I like. It's got a lot of energy, but I never could. And that was on the first. I can't think of his name, but. Ray Eddington played on the first one, and it was great. But Chet didn't want to do it, so I didn't argue with him, but I played rhythm on the second one. I didn't think it was nearly as good, but that's my opinion.
Did Les actually grab Chet's thumb pick one time?
That was at the bottom line. We went up there to promote that album. And, I mean, he's a terror on the stage. You know, he always clowning. He just reaches over right in the middle of Chet was playing the chorus, he reaches over and rips it off and threw it out there. Chet said, well, your son would bitch you. Pardon my French. We played a concert in Pittsburgh, and Les opened the show, and boy, I'm telling you, it went on and on. He played every tune that's ever been written since World War II. I I mean, he was out there an hour and a half, and we were just getting tired, and Chet was getting tired. You know, your energy, if you don't go on, you sort of will till you get ready for the show, and then,
That's right.
you know, it's,
That's right, enjoy the club.
after the show, I told Chet, I said, I'm gonna have me a T-shirt printed up that said, I survived the Les Paul Chet. Anything else?
I'd like to know just your favorite personal story about you and Chet. Or one of your favorite times.
Oh, I don't know. They were all great. Had a lot of funny things. I guess one of the funniest things that happened, we were up in Ohio somewhere, we're standing up. I've told this, y'all may have already heard this. I don't like to repeat myself. But the way Chet and I always worked, we'd do a sound check when we get to a place, and we'd go to the hotel, and we'd all take a nap, rest up and all that. And I'd eat dinner, maybe 5 o'clock I'd eat, and we had time we'd leave to go to the auditorium. I'd always go by Chet's room and have him carry his guitar, and he'd carry his suit and his backpack. So I went by his room, and he was dressing and getting ready, and we standing there talking, and there was a knock on the door, and we were close to the door. We turned around and we looked, and we saw this thumb picture coming underneath of the door. It was just sliding under. Somebody was sliding a thumb pick underneath that door. It's something that a guy had made a thumb pick. It was the weirdest thing you ever seen. But anyway, he's poking it underneath the door, and Chet thought that was so funny, he started laughing. So he walks over and opened the door, and there wasn't anybody in the hall. But, I mean, you had to be there. That was one of the funniest things. It looked like a bug coming underneath the door. Another time, sort of funny, he and I were sitting in first class. Up till I was about 50 years old, I really looked young, friends. Everybody thought I was about 20 years old until I got about 50, and then about 6 months I looked like I was 70. But anyway, we were sitting up there, and this stewardess come by and said, Mr. Atkins, would you and your son like to Judge said, son, hell, said, he's as old as I am. Okay, I'll take one more question. Anybody got a goodie?
How's Jerry doing?
He's doing well. He's got emphysema real bad, unfortunately. And, of course, you know, he and I are about the same age. And when you get our age, you always have health issues, as my son says. But he's got some new medicine that's here lately that's been helping him quite a bit. And Jerry has, in his right hand, he's got a thing called non-essential tremor. And there's no treatment for it. They don't know what caused it. But Jerry's hand is just like this. And he can't hardly keep food on his fork, you know. He puts his hand down on the table, he has to hold it like that, and his hand just bounces like that. And it's really sad. But he still writes. He can really write, and I'm going to prove it to you right now. Come here, Mark. This is Mark Thornton, Jerry Reed's guitar player. He's one of my best friends. He helps me make my CDs. Any of you guys want to make a CD, he's got a great studio. And he's going to play a new Jerry Reed tune for it. Nobody's heard. I mean, it's a killer. So this is going to be a treat for you, friends. You going to plug it in and play it? No, I wonder if they'll be able to hear me. How you going to do it? You going to play it in? You can't, yeah. Okay.
I'll be your roadie here.
We're all kind of playing at the same time.
I'll have to get over there here. Mark is one of the great guitar players. He wouldn't be working with Jerry if he wasn't. But go ahead and talk to him. Tell him what it is.
He's always coming up with new tunes.
Don't make a mean look at
He's written, 3 or 4 new tunes that hasn't even been recorded yet. We're about to put this down on tape in the next couple of weeks. We need to put it down quick before he changes it again. He likes to change the arrangement constantly.
So what's the title of it?
Gnawbone. And we're driving through Indiana. He named it after a tune, after a little town in Indiana, Gnawbone. You got a kick out of that. If I can get through it, I'm not used to all this pressure. Room full of guitar players. Well, I don't think I can get through that one. I can barely get through this one. Maybe next time. Of course, Jerry was here, so he could play that for you.
You've done a good job.
Mark. Mark? Hey, Mark.
I'll play one more tune, then we'll call it a day and let a real guitar player get up here.
We don't.
Hey, I'll tell you what, folks, friends and neighbors. Mike, bring my little thing up here. I'm gonna give this away to the person that came the furthest. That's the way we used to do back then. That's an old gimmick that they used to do in that. Well, I don't know who came the first, I'm gonna give him a diamond ring. Who thinks they came the? Oh well, when I started doing my CD, you always got to have a title and all that. So I thought of Dream Train, and so I asked Steve Warner to. Steve Steve is a great artist. I mean, he's great. So he drew this picture for me. I said, I want to, you remember those old streamliner trains that used to run in the 40s? He said, yeah. And I said, well, I want you to draw a picture of it and draw for my CD. So that's what he did. And that's how it turned out. It's great. So I'm going to give it to the person who came the farthest. Now, who thinks they came the farthest? And Kenny, don't you speak up.
I'll start with Orange County, California.
California. Me too. Anybody from out of the country? Europe?
London, not here.
Whoa.
What about Russia? That's close.
Wrong? Would wrong qualify?
What is it?
Yeah, from London.
I think this gentleman's got it from London.
All right.
All right.
Go ahead and get it.
From where?
Just here to talk.
Bobby Angel.
There you go. Well, I swear nowadays you give somebody some in about 2 weeks, it's on eBay.
Maybe I'll start selling stuff.
Boy, a guy here named Bobby Gibson that had a pedal that belonged to, a volume pedal that belonged to Paul Bigsby. And George Gunn sold it to him for $7,500. You believe that? A volume pedal, a demonstrator that Paul Bigsby carried around and showed. You'll run into him, he's around here somewhere, he'll tell you. It's a great story.